Welcome to The Bridge. Fun conversations on culture, life, and everything in between.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Bridge. We are a show that connects East and West. My name is Jason. I like to be called Shangguan Jiewan in Chinese. I am originally from California in the United States, but now I am living in beautiful Wuhan, China. Today with me is Bebe.
Hi, this is Bebe from Beijing.
Find us where you get your podcasts. If you like the show, then consider pushing the like button or giving us 5 stars. Suggestions, comments, anything you would like to share, email us at welovethebridge@gmail.com. We love the bridge. Well, I wanted to talk about a train derailing. So I had been watching the last couple weeks. There's been a lot of news articles about how people have been stealing packages off of the Amtrak in the Los Angeles area. And I kept reading this, and I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting, you know. Kind of like the Old West when they used to rob trains. But very, very recently, an Amtrak derailed. 17 cars went off the tracks because there was so much like garbage left over from looters. The looters had just left boxes and stuff that they didn't want all over the tracks. So one of the trains went off, according to AP. And so there's an article that came out on MSN called "Train Derails Near LA Site of Recent Wave of Cargo Thefts." And it's really interesting to me. I mean, I hope no one's got hurt. Presumably this is just stuff. It's not like people are on these kind of trains. So I think it's mostly affected like just maybe the driver and then a bunch of cars. So probably no one was hurt, I hope. Yeah. But I think this talks about 2 things that I'm interested in. One is like wealth inequality, because there are people having to steal stuff to supplement like their lifestyle or income or whatever. Maybe they're selling at pawn shops or whatever to their friends or something. The other thing is like infrastructure. So like that it shows 2 things. It shows that there's, wealth inequality is driving people to have to steal from trains, which is really bizarre. It sounds like something from like the 1800s in a cowboy movie. And the other thing is, like, the state of the infrastructure in the U.S. is, like, so bad that we get derailing because the cardboard boxes are on the tracks.
Well, I don't know what it takes to derail trains. But I can think of something else, though. Because, when people are poor, not all poor people steal or take things from others.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem is also the employment issue. I think sometimes it's poverty, but coupled with the fact that people are idle when they see no channels to go up, like there's no hope of finding something decent, that then they find something else to do with the time they have on hand. So I think when we talk about like poverty issues, it's a big part of it is actually finding things to do, finding proper things to do, right, for people who need a channel on which they can progress, or they can move up. So that's, I guess, at least 3 things.
Yeah.
Tackling on poverty, inequality, employment, and also infrastructure. About infrastructure in the States, like if you compare the metro stations, in the U.S., like say in New York City, with the ones that are in some cities in China where these stations are newly built, you see huge differences.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons is because the ones in the U.S. were built so much earlier. Yeah. Right? Because you had it so much earlier. It was so advanced in the past. And then, it's a tougher job to make the effort to redo the whole thing again. Well, because we were, falling behind for so long, and now they're finally catching up, we're just going to have the newest thing. So that's another reason why, if you compare them now, you see a huge difference. It's because we were, so behind for so long.
They passed this infrastructure bill, and what I find is really interesting,
I heard,
is that Biden is a huge fan of Amtrak. So one of the things that went into the congressional bill is like rebuilding Amtrak. Now I find this really interesting because what you're just saying, like China's got the newest stuff, all the coolest toys that all the kids in the neighborhood want. But like rebuilding Amtrak really just brings it back to the high quality that it was when it was first built. It almost seems to me like a huge waste of money to rebuild Amtrak to its glory days instead of just replacing it with something better.
Like glory days back in the 80s or what?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure when Amtrak was built. I guess different lines were built at different times, but it's decades and decades old minimum. You know, just at least decades and decades old. It seems like we shouldn't really just be rebuilding Amtrak so that you have these trains that travel at, like, I don't know, 80 miles an hour. It seems like what you would want to do is start replacing lines with new technology, with high-speed rail. So maybe, ideally, spending maybe a little bit more, but instead of rebuilding Amtrak to be better, replacing Amtrak with something better might be the way to go.
That gets complicated, though, because, you know, I'm just thinking, because let's say if they want to do the high-speed rail, there are a few countries that are really good at this, right? They can go to Europe, like France, Switzerland, or they can go to Japan.
Or China.
Or China. But then things get political, right?
Yeah.
Then there will be a lot of trade and business deals between the two. I guess it's not as easy as it sounds. And also, so with that bill, are they going ahead with it? Like, has everybody put in their yeses and they were going to do this?
It was passed. It was signed at the end of last year.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's not actually enough. So, really, this money is just like a drop in the bucket in terms of, like, the kind of rebuilding that needs to go on. So, the logistics are really not going to improve. It's just going to make some... Really, it's not all going to Amtrak. It's going to different places. So a lot of it's to make sure that bridges don't collapse. You know, a lot of it's... Yeah, because, you know, there are a lot of these old bridges that are in desperate need of repairs. And so a lot of the money is going to go into just rebuilding roads, rebuilding freeways, rebuilding bridges, making sure that all of the infrastructure that was originally built can continue to be safe for people, really. Now, not a lot of it's going to get things better. It's just to make sure things are still good enough.
Don't collapse, as you said.
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know. When I hear about these projects, I mean, they sound really good. But I'm also worried about the national debt. You know, like, who's actually paying for these? Are they going to do it like a private market way, like the free market way, whoever wants to win the bid? Or is the government allocating money for this? And where will that money come from? It gets a little... Yeah. I don't know enough about it. But I think projects like this... It'll take a long time. Probably, most likely cross over from like the current government and administrations. So I don't know. I guess you can keep us updated on that.
Well, we'll see how it continues to develop over the coming months and years. Because this is, like you said, not going to happen next week. You know, this is going to take a long time to implement and roll out and develop this kind of stuff. But we did see in the last 10 or 15 years a few bridge collapses, which was really scary, and it really alerted the American people to the problem of infrastructure, which is not, you know, that's not the spiciest thing. People don't sit around typically talking about infrastructure. You know, people, that's not like, oh, you know, my friend James came over and we were talking about the bridges the other day. That just doesn't happen.
Or building the high rail train and things like that.
Yeah, it's not the most exciting thing. So the fact that bridges had to collapse for people to take it seriously shows that it is very serious.
That's true. And I mean, on China's end, I guess we've been doing a lot of these works almost silently for a long time. And it wasn't until recently it seems like the world's starting to notice that, you know, China seems rather advanced now when it comes to its infrastructure.
Yeah, there's so many YouTube videos about it now.
Yeah, but actually it's been happening for decades, right? It's just now that things are, like, the puzzle pieces are falling in places, and then you start to see the grander picture. But it wasn't the work of a year or two, or maybe like more than a decade or two. So it takes time. It takes time, and it takes money and proper management.
You know, you did mention like 3 things about the robberies and the train derailment. Interesting to me because we have actually low unemployment. Just means people looking for work. So there may be people that are they're not actually looking for work anymore because of early retirements and all these things. But like you mentioned, a lot of the jobs out there are very low paying. So even though there's not a lot of unemployment for those people who are actually actively looking to have work, there still are low paying jobs for the people who have managed to find work. And so this creates the kind of equality that it doesn't cause theft, but contributes to it being a problem. Because certainly if people were being paid enough, they wouldn't need to go, like, rob from, you know, trains.
or if they're kept busy.
Yeah.
Right? If they have enough jobs. I don't know. I think one other reason, this might sound bad, one other reason might be that because of the social, benefit network, right? Is you can get packages for, at least a few months.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, let's say, you just lost your job, and you can still get a few $100s per week, I think.
Mm-hmm. So
it's like, it's enough to cover the most basics. And nowadays, especially with the pandemic, I think there are, it seems like, every few months you hear that the government is handing out money again, right? About maybe $1,000 or $2,000 per family member, something like that. So, it's good in the way that it's going to help people to meet the emergency, right? Behind a rent or things like that. People feel like they might do okay just on welfare, right? Like maybe I don't really have to go work in a shop for like $10 an hour, but I might have to end up paying taxes on top of that. So I think maybe it's a bit of a controversial issue when it comes to welfare. Also, I heard that if you have a couple kids, right, you can you can get a few $100s on social welfare.
I really don't know, but I've heard that too. It is very controversial, but I don't know all the facts very well.
The issue about poverty is very, very complicated, and it's not as we think. Right? If you really go in and study these cases, I think you're going to be shocked by how the details actually pan out. A lot of it's about psychology, right? How people feel being poor, and whether or not they have the opportunity to climb out of that trap or that hole.
Yeah.
And also, what are the right policies? It's hard to say, and I think that's why, I just finished reading Core Economics, and it was very insightful in that it opened my mind to one thing, and it isn't specifically about poverty. Do not judge. Do not judge. Try to understand. Because what the whole book is trying to tell its readers is that it's not a simple issue of just handing out money. Each case could be different. Each family could face different problems, and they have their own ways of thinking. Like, it might sound bad, but rich people and poor people, in many ways, think differently. Right? A rich person will come over and tell you, he or she's poor because she doesn't save money. Right? She spends everything she earns. Or, she doesn't have the vision to do long-term planning. Or the family isn't spending enough on education so their kids can have the future. They can have all these reasons. They blame it on the poor for not being able to make it. But what they don't understand is when you are at that position, when you have literally no cushion, right? You are actually living, your everyday existence is living through a financial crisis.